Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the No DQ live recap of AEW Dynamite for March the 10th, 2021, and I will also be discussing NXT. This was a very eventful night. There is a lot to discuss from both companies, so let's get right down to it. Johnny Boy already sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you, Johnny Boy. He says, man, if NXT keeps putting on shows like this, it's going to have to be your main discussion on Wednesday nights. Well, we'll have to wait and see because NXT could be moving to Tuesdays. However, that was not the big announcement from NXT this week. There were two announcements. Neither of them had anything to do with NXT moving to Tuesdays. But we'll talk about NXT later. I'm going to start with my thoughts on AEW Dynamite. So if you're looking for NXT thoughts, you'll have to wait a little bit, 15, 20 minutes or so, as I get through the AEW recap. Psycho Jet Black with a $2 super chat says, Lars Sullivan still has better climaxes than AEW. How would you know that, Psycho Jet Black? Just wondering. I guess you probably saw something that some other people may have seen. Who knows? Anyways, I'm not gonna go into any more detail on that and turn off the people watching this. Let's get to AEW. We kicked off Dynamite, the post-Revolution edition of Dynamite, with a singles match, Rey Fenix versus Matt Jackson. You had Nick and Pac at ringside. Fun opening match here, back and forth between these two. And you had Phoenix almost get counted out at one point. He got hit with a destroyer. Matt hit a destroyer in the ring. Phoenix rolled to the outside, and then Matt hit a second destroyer. Phoenix did get back into the ring, beat the 10 count, and Phoenix attempted to drop kick Matt, ended up hitting Nick instead. Matt went to the outside to check on Nick, and he super kicked Pac, who was out there just being menacing, as Pac tends to be. And then back in the ring, Phoenix managed to counter Matt's tombstone with a pile driver of his own and picked up the victory over Matt Jackson. I guess we'll be seeing a tag team title match at some point. Phoenix and Pac challenging the Young Bucks. Pretty solid opener for Dynamite this week, as you would expect from these guys. We then had a segment with Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. They were in this room, living room somewhere, and Eddie Kingston explained what happened at the end of Revolution. That pyro dud, the explosions that did not look impressive at all. Eddie Kingston, however, sold it like it pretty much killed him. Eddie explained that he had an anxiety flashback, which caused him to just have a blackout. Everything went dark, and that's what happened. Moxley joked about how it was Impact Wrestling that paid for the explosions / bomb. But he did admit that Omega was the better man at Revolution, but at least Moxley now has his old drinking buddy back. So what did you guys think about this explanation? I figured this is the way AEW should have gone. They could have just ignored it, but they tried to explain it best they could, saying that Eddie just passed out from the anxiety. I guess if you were expecting a bomb to go off, you might pass out. It's certainly possible. Hamp Connell with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Hamp. He says, I give AEW credit for acknowledging the failure. WWE would have just pretended everything went right and called it the greatest moment of all time. Yeah, that's quite possible. Or WWE could have edited the commentary to make it sound different than the way it was, or add special effects to it. They could have done any number of things. TJS, longtime No DQ contributor with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. says, do you think AEW should just fess up and apologize for the Revolution ending instead of Damage Control? Makes Eddie look like a baby and Moxley comedy. I think AEW did the best they could under the circumstances and tried to explain the storyline. I'm not really sure if just apologizing is the right way to go. It's hard to say. It really is, and I'm not sure what I would have done under the same circumstances. I really don't know. Brian Spencer with a $3 super chat says, what a terrible attempt at over-explaining. I've seen mixed thoughts on it, and thank you for the super chat. I've seen people say that they thought it was a good explanation. Others thought it was terrible. Cindy is in the chat room, and she said they had to due to the backlash on social media. Mark Matthews says it would have been better if Tony Khan didn't admit that he couldn't pull off the big payoff. Yeah, I'm just not really sure how to feel about it, quite frankly. I think that they did the best they could, and I think it's time to move on. Things happen. Hopefully AEW doesn't keep having endings like that, because that could be bad for the brand long term. I don't think one bad ending to a show is going to hurt their reputation, but definitely I think AEW and WWE too. I mean, let's not forget the Royal Rumble with that whole Kevin Owens, Roman Reigns debacle and that last man standing match. WWE has had screwed up segments as well this same year. I think that what we need, and maybe this is something AEW can learn from, WWE can learn from, that you want to have a backup plan. You want to be able to call an audible if something goes wrong. You got to think, like, what happens if this doesn't go the way we want it to go? Hey, we can do this instead, and just have different ideas of things to do in case something goes wrong. But I mean, it's easier said than done. It's very easy to just come on here and say, oh, have a backup plan, but then actually being able to think it all out and know what to do, it's tough, you know, on a moment's notice. You know, it would have been better if somebody had just said last minute, tell Eddie Kingston to get up and no-sell what happened, but they didn't do it. Anyways, enough of that. Let's get back to Dynamite. We had Cody Rhodes in a quick squash match. He gave his weightlifting belt to a disabled fan at ringside. That was pretty cool. And after the match, the guy's name, by the way, Seth Gargis, but he pretty much lost in like a minute. After the match, Cody was interviewed, and he was going to start talking about his shoulder injury from the Face of the Revolution ladder match when Penta, the guy who did the destroyer to Cody on that ladder at the pay-per-view, he interrupted and he told Cody to shut up. He had his translator with him, and Penta actually did say a few things. He said that if it was a one-on-one match instead of a ladder match, Cody would have lost more than just the match. He would not have been able to pick up his baby girl. And of course, whenever you make it personal, you know, just like with Triple H, you make it personal, you talk about the wife or the kids, like it boils the blood in the baby face, and Cody got furious. He jumped Penta. We had a big pull apart brawl with everybody. So it looks like they're going to have a match at some point. Good follow-up. I like it because Penta did take out Cody at the pay-per-view, so you followed that up and you're keeping that going as a storyline. I liked it. Gary in the chat room says, I think people should just let it be with the explosion. Things happen and botches happen to the big promotions. Look at Roman's botch against Owens at the Rumble. That happened mid-match, big botch. Absolutely. I'm with you on that one, Gary. You know, WWE made a very big blunder as well. It happens. We had Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor in an arcade, and basically they want a rematch against Miro and Kip Sabian, only this time arcade machines will be surrounding the ring. I guess a lumberjack match, but instead of lumberjacks, you're going to have arcade machines, okay? I was hoping that this was going to be the end of this storyline and Miro would go on to something else, but looks like we're going to have another match with these guys with actual arcade systems set up outside the ring. Should be a barn burner. We had Sting interviewed to celebrate his victory at the Revolution pay-per-view in the street fight. But before he could really say anything, he was interrupted. Man, AEW is like WWE now with all these promos being interrupted. Interrupted by Lance Archer and Jake Roberts. So I guess Lance Archer is back to being a heel. That was like, what, a 1-month babyface turn for him? Archer said he doesn't need a ladder match to prove he's the face of the Revolution. And he got in Sting's face a little bit and then took off. So yeah, I guess Lance Archer a heel then. Maybe he's influenced by the Big Show, or excuse me, No More BS, Paul Wight, and he's trying to copy his hero Paul Wight with these constant heel and face turns. Maybe Lance Archer is destined, as Jose says, to be the new Big Show. And I guess it's fine, you know, Sting works well with the bigger guys, Brian Cage and now Lance Archer, so guess it's something for Archer to do. Better than to just be a random guy not doing much of anything. At least he's working with Sting and will probably put over Sting. We had QT Marshall interviewed about why he walked out on Dustin Rhodes during the Casino Tag Team Battle Royal. He said he's only human and he bleeds when he falls down. Actually, he didn't say that second part. He just said that emotions got the best of him. And he praised Lee Johnson, said Lee's going to do well against Ethan Page. We had this match, Lee Johnson versus Ethan Page. And all I can tell you guys, my critique of this match, defense. Defense. Basically what happened was we had audio from an NBA game mixed into the sound with AEW Dynamite. This was a TNT issue. Apparently people on Fight TV had no problem with the audio, but if you were watching on TNT, you heard audio from a basketball game mixed in during this match and a bouncing ball sound. It was rough. Tony Khan even had to acknowledge it, and he's putting up the match on YouTube, which doesn't AEW do anyways. They put up the matches and segments after the show on YouTube. But yeah, it'll be up on YouTube without the audio issues. So hard for me to really say much about this match because I was distracted by the audio. But basically, you had QT Marshall on the outside, and Johnson's knee was giving him problems, and QT was basically showing no emotion whatsoever. And Page picked up the victory with the variation of the Razor's Edge. Instead of falling down to the mat with the guy he's dropping, he just tosses the guy like a Razor's Edge and stays standing. And after the match was over, Page continued to beat down Lee Johnson. QT just walked away in disgust. And then Dustin Rhodes came down to help out Lee Johnson. Hamp Kano with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Hamp. He says, AEW's new intro theme should be Ain't No Mountain High Enough. Aw, people are really giving AEW a hard time. And I feel bad for them too, because sometimes things happen. The TNT thing, I mean, that's TNT's fault. You cannot blame that on AEW. That was something from a basketball game with the NBA being mixed in with the AEW sound. So, yeah, things happen. It certainly doesn't help that it's a night after what happened at the Revolution pay-per-view, back-to-back nights in 1 week. It's pretty rough. We had Adam Page, not Ethan Page. By the way, I like that suggestion from the wrestling memes page. How about this, everybody? A tag team match. Adam Page and Ethan Page versus Christian Cage and Brian Cage, with Diamond Dallas Page as the guest referee inside a steel cage. That's a money match. Tony Khan, book that match. We got to have that match now. We just have to. So anyways, Adam Page was outside. Alex Marvez was interviewing him. Adam Page bought some whiskey with Matt Hardy's money that he won, got a brand new lawnmower, and then the Dark Order arrived and they all hitched a ride except for 10 or 11 or 12. One of those guys, one of the masked guys was not able to fit. There was a weight limit. So yeah, fun little segment here. Dark Order, they're total goofballs. TJS with a $3 super chat. Ooh, here we go. TJS being a little bit of a harsh critic here. He says, the Royal Rumble botch wasn't on a $55 show. AEW's was not cool. Solid point there. I will say that, you know, when it's a $55, well, 50 on Bleacher Report Live. Not sure where you bought it. But yeah, when you're spending a lot of money on the pay-per-view, you're going to tend to be more critical about it. With the WWE pay-per-views, it's like, well, whatever, you know, it's $10, no biggie. But, I mean, really, I think both companies need to have some sort of backup plan if something like this goes wrong. But, you know, things happen and they just do what they can, and sometimes things don't work out. We had what was supposed to be an interview with Christian, but instead of Christian, Kenny Omega and his faction, not even sure if they have a name, but it's Kenny Omega, Don Callis, and the Good Brothers. They appeared, and we had the cleaner dancers out there. And basically, Callis said that they can do whatever they want, and they're taking this interview time that was meant for Christian for themselves. Callis called Omega the king of the death match, and then they started talking about the giant explosion, and Callis said he's not going to confirm or deny if they had anything to do with what happened, but they're happy. They're happy they took what the fans were hoping to be this big moment away from them. Happy that they took Moxley's moment away from him. And the bottom line is, regardless of whether there were big explosions or not, they won. And that's all that matters. And Kenny Omega started mocking Eddie Kingston. That's when Eddie came down to the ring. And Callis put over Eddie, talked about Impact Wrestling, how Eddie was there because Callis saw the talent and the toughness in Eddie. However, Callis added that when Eddie gets close to the top, he ends up screwing things up. And they all started making fun of him. They reenacted the 10-second countdown with Kenny Omega lying on the ground and freaking out. And then Kenny dared Eddie to hit him. So that's what Eddie did. He struck at Kenny, and then the Good Brothers jumped Eddie. We had Moxley run down to make the save. There was this huge brawl. And then the man himself, Christian Cage, showed up, got in the ring to have a stare down with Kenny Omega. Omega offered a handshake and then tried to cheap shot Christian, but Christian, he's a 47-year-old veteran. He knows a thing or two about cheap shots. He caught it, and he went for the unprettier, but Callis was able to pull Omega to safety. And then Cage, not Brian Cage, Christian Cage, grabbed the AEW World title and held it up high. Tic Tat Tat says, I hate all of the AEW new signings getting the first title shot. I'm okay with it because, I mean, Christian should ultimately be putting over other people. That should be his role. So you're going to bring him in. He's hot and fresh from WWE. You know, I always say, strike the iron when it's hot. Christian was just at the Royal Rumble. There's buzz about him being cleared to wrestle again. So I think there's a story in Christian going for not just one more match, but one more title. And I think if you put Christian in with the mid-card guys for a while, you know, he might lose a little bit of steam. I think if you're going to do this match, I think you should do it as soon as possible when Christian's, you know, capable. You know, he's not getting any younger. Who knows how many matches he has left in him. So I say do the match, and then you could start slowly phasing Christian down the card, have him work with some of the younger guys and that sort of thing. But yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with Christian versus Omega if that's the next program that AEW wants to do. And by the way, speaking of Omega, he's going to be challenging for the Impact World title, I believe. I'm not sure if it's title for title. I'm a little confused about that. I think it is. I know they're doing a unification match with the TNA champion Moose and Rich Swann, the Impact champion, at the Sacrifice show on Impact Plus this coming Saturday. Pretty sure we're going to see Moose win that one, just because I don't think Rich Swann, after losing to Omega, is going to win that match. And then we'll have Moose versus Omega, champion versus champion, which I'm very intrigued by how that's going to go down, although I would be shocked if Omega lost, quite frankly. I think we could see Omega becoming the belt collector and winning all the championships. Or maybe, as Jose points out in the chat room, maybe there's a screwy finish. Certainly possible. Let's move on here. We had a 6-woman match. Nyla Rose, Britt Baker, and Maki Ito against Hikaru Shida, Thunder Rosa, and Ryo Mizunami. And I apologize if I butchered any of those names. We had Ryo singing a song as she made her entrance, and then a big fight just broke out with everybody. But this was really awkward for me. So first of all, Vicky Guerrero was taking down Shida, which I thought was absolutely absurd. And then to top it off, you had Ryo with Ito with the microphone, and she's hitting Shida with the microphone with some of the worst microphone shots I've ever seen in my life. I mean, they were so weak. We had the match, and Vicky Guerrero was interfering, of course, grabbing at Thunder Rosa's feet. Ito hit her swinging DDT, got a near fall, and then Rebel got on the apron, had a crutch. Rosa was able to stop Rebel, and then Rosa pinned Ito to pick up the victory. After the match was over, Britt Baker came in and attacked Rosa with the crutch, put on the lockjaw. I wasn't a huge fan of this match. I thought it was kind of a mess, but there is some interesting news. Next week, it's going to be Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa in an unsanctioned lights-out match on AEW Dynamite, and in addition to that, it's going to be the main event of the show. Finally, the women are getting a main event spot on Dynamite. Looking forward to that. Nice one-on-one match here. I think they're going to deliver something really special. So that'll be next week. They'll be in that unsanctioned lights out match, and we'll see what they can pull off with that one. Then we had a backstage segment. Matt Hardy at the bar with the private party said he needs to bring in some more money, even though he's big money Matt. And he signed a new unit. So Matt Hardy has a new faction. Matt Hardy, in addition to Private Party, he's now got the Butcher, Blade, and Bunny with him. Because I guess now that Eddie Kingston's a face, Butcher, Blade, and Bunny have to join a new faction. And they are going to destroy the Dark Order. We had Darby Allin versus Scorpio Sky for the TNT Championship. Of course, Scorpio Sky won the Face of the Revolution ladder match to earn this championship opportunity. And why am I saying championship opportunity? This is AEW. It was a title shot. And they did a fist bump to show some respect before the match. Really good match here between the two of them. I would say the match of the night for sure. Back and forth here. Lots of near falls. However, Scorpio Sky could not put away Darby, and then he went for a TKO, which Darby countered into a small package and retained the championship. After the match, Darby was showing some good sportsmanship when All of a sudden, Scorpio Sky had a Mr. Bob Backlund moment where he snapped and beat the crap out of Darby, put on a heel hook. Referees ran down, had to break it up. Looks like we're getting a Scorpio Sky heel turn. I think AEW might be overdoing it with the turns. You know, a lot of turns on one show. I mean, WWE did do 2 turns in 1 week with Apollo, and then Otis, I guess Chad Gable was already a heel. But yeah, I think that AEW needs to be careful about turning too many people on one show. It just, becomes a little bit excessive and hard to keep up. Who's a face, who's a heel, what the hell's going on here? And Jose says, nah, man, everyone is just a tweener now. Well, yeah, there you go. They're all a bunch of shades of gray. Who knows what's going on? But yeah, Scorpio Sky, I mean, it was a heel thing to do, attack the guy after the match, be a sore loser. So he's pretty clearly a heel and not a tweener, although maybe next week he'll be back to making the save for somebody. Who knows at this point? Maybe that's Paul Wight's role. He's passing on his knowledge to everybody, like how to go back and forth from being a heel and a face, and he's passing that on to the next generation of superstars. As Tic Tat Tat says, the Big Show effect. All right, so we had our final segment of Dynamite, and then I'll talk about NXT. And by the way, if you're enjoying this video and you're watching it maybe for the first time, please subscribe to the channel at youtube.com/AaronRiftNoDQ. Turn on notifications so you get the latest news updates. We had our final segment, which was the Inner Circle War Council. And Jericho talked about how they want to have a new look, a new attitude, maybe a new member. But then MJF said, not a good idea for a new member. If anything, maybe it's time to let somebody go. But before MJF could finish this, we had Sammy Guevara appear, who hasn't been on television for several weeks ever since quitting the Inner Circle. He said because of everything that him and Jericho have been through, he had something to show Jericho. He put up video footage on the big screen, a hidden camera or security camera, whatever it was, basically showing MJF backstage plotting with the other Inner Circle members to throw out Jericho from the group. However, once we got back into the ring and MJF told the Inner Circle guys to get Jericho, it was a double cross. The Inner Circle, they were actually with Jericho. They were on Jericho's side, and they turned over towards MJF as if they're going to get him. And then Jericho officially fired MJF from the Inner Circle. MJF was like acting all upset, talking about how he didn't want to take over Jericho's group, and then his tone turned serious as he said he's been too busy building his own group. Lights went out, they came back on, and we had FTR, Shawn Spears, and Wardlow in the ring. A huge fight broke out, and we had guys handcuffed, and there was just this huge beatdown on the Inner Circle. MJF took the Dynamite Diamond ring and punched out Jericho with it. Jericho was busted open, wearing the Crimson Mask, and then the bat was used on Jericho Floyd. And to top it all off, they went over by the stage, and Wardlow picked up Jericho, power bombed him off the stage down onto a crash pad below. So I guess we got a new faction for sure, which is like the 10th faction in AEW right now. And it looks like we have the Inner Circle turning face, which is like the 3rd or 4th turn on this show. With that being said, I was still entertained by Dynamite overall. It was a fast-paced show. A lot of things happened, but I think they might need to work on not having so many turns, especially on one show. And on top of that, they're going a little overboard with the factions. I mean, they have been for a while. It feels like almost every person on the roster is in a faction at this point. And Nick Glavin with a $4 super chat, thank you for that, Nick, says, I really enjoyed the main event segment. As did I. I liked it too. But yeah, too many factions. It's like, who's not in the faction at this point? Moxley, I guess? Eddie Kingston no longer has a faction, I suppose. So, overall, good show. I'm going to give it a solid B. Good Dynamite this week. Entertaining show. Not perfect. It had its flaws, but I still was entertained overall. And Shaq gives it a B+. Nick Lavin with a B. Israel Diaz says a B as well, as does Lewis and Brandon. Daniel gives Dynamite an A-. And yeah, I agree. The last 30 minutes of the show was the best thing about the show. The Scorpio Sky Darby Allin match was really solid, and the main event segment definitely worth checking out. Power Packers 90 gives it an A-, and Ma W gives it a C. All right, let's talk about NXT here, just the highlights of the show. We did have some announcements and some happenings on this show. So first of all, we kicked it off with William Regal making the big announcements for, first of all, TakeOver, which is going to be on 2 nights, and this was something that was already rumored to happen. NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver. The first one will be on Wednesday, April 7th, and that will be on the USA Network. And then the second NXT TakeOver will be on the Thursday. Now, wait a minute. Is it April 7th or April 8th? I'm not sure of the dates off the top of my head, but it's either April 6th, April 7th, April 8th, something like that. The Wednesday will be on the USA Network. The Thursday will be on Peacock, exclusive to Peacock. Israel Diaz says April 7th and 8th. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So that was the first announcement, Stand and Deliver, 2-night NXT TakeOver. And then the second announcement, because Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez won the Dusty Classic and they got screwed out of the tag team titles last week, the WWE Women's Tag Team titles, William Regal has decided to make the NXT Women's Tag Team titles. And furthermore, Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez were crowned the first champions. Then we had Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart challenge the new champs to a title match on that very show. Gary says, Aaron, this is probably going to be unpopular, but damn, this makes it 26. That's right, 26 championships in WWE. Good grief. I feel that these titles are becoming extremely overkill. Yikes. Yeah, I see where you're coming from. A lot of people feel that way, and I agree. We don't need more titles. Plus, wasn't the whole point of the women's tag team titles to be defended on all 3 brands? Like, I thought that's what it was for. If anything, I want to see titles merged. I don't want to see more titles. I know NXT has a very deep women's division, and that's a positive, so it gives something for them, but it's like, it's just too much. It's too much. Maybe if WWE cut back on a few titles and then you wanted to add women's tag team titles, I'd be okay, but they got to merge some titles first before you start adding more, in my opinion. But it is what it is, and we did have that tag team match, and we got new tag team champions. Some people were upset about this. They're like, well, why did you even crown Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez as champions in the first place if they were just going to lose the titles right away? Don't have a good answer for you. But yeah, Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart are the brand new WWE NXT Women's Tag Team Champions. And I figured that was going to happen anyways because I suspected that at the TakeOver pay-per-view it would be Io Shirai versus Raquel Gonzalez. That's what they set up at the War Games pay-per-view. And, you know, Raquel Gonzalez has been built up as a rising force in the women's division, and probably the one that will finally beat Io for the title. So I figured this was going to happen with a singles match, and thus Raquel Gonzalez would not be in a tag team title situation. And sure enough, backstage, Io Shirai confronted Raquel Gonzalez. So it does look like we're going to see that match at Stand and Deliver, the next NXT TakeOver. And the other big happening, the main event match, which was Adam Cole challenging Finn Balor for the championship. Pretty long match here between the two of them. Went into the overrun after AEW ended. Cole hit the last shot, and he hit the Panama Sunrise. Both times, Balor was able to kick out. And then Kyle O'Reilly showed up, and he distracted Adam Cole. Balor took advantage of this, hit the 1916 on the floor, got Cole back in the ring, and then hit the coup de grace off the top, scored the 1-2-3 victory to retain his championship. Kyle O'Reilly, after the match, went after Adam Cole, beat the crap out of him, tossed him around the outside, and then back in the ring as Balor was celebrating, you guessed it, Karrion Kross showed up. He's ready to cash in and get his rematch for the championship, or not even a rematch because he never lost the title, just get a chance to regain the title that he never lost. So, you know, this was a solid NXT episode from what I was able to see. You set up several matches already for the TakeOver. You got Io Shirai versus Raquel Gonzalez, Adam Cole versus Kyle O'Reilly, and then Finn Balor versus Karrion Kross. Good stuff here, but I do have mixed feelings about the women's tag team titles. Too many titles in WWE, too many factions in AEW, but all in all, I think both shows put on entertaining shows. Both brands put on entertaining shows. And I would say thumbs up to both shows this week, despite the issues. Anyways, that's all I got for tonight. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. And again, subscribe, youtube.com/AaronRift.NoDQ. Turn on notifications for updates. And stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest wrestling news and rumors. And I will see you guys next time.